save yourself a lot of time and learn from what other people have been through and what challenges they faced.
Welcome to Behind the Screens, Conversations with Background Screening Pros. I'm Les Rosen, your host, and I'm excited to have you here. On this podcast, we chat with the people who know the background screening world inside and out. Executives, industry experts, legal pros, and more. We dive into their personal stories and insights to give you a real look at what's happening behind the scenes. Whether you work in the screening industry or are just curious, Behind the Screens bring you the real, unfiltered conversations from the people who make it all happen. Stick around for stories you won't hear anywhere else. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of Behind the Screens, Conversations with Background Screening Pros. And I'm delighted today that our guest is Becky Kuehn, who is an attorney with an incredible resume. She has been deep in the inner workings of the Federal Trade Commission. She has worked with screening firms. She's now with a leading private firm. She's seen it all. She's done it all. And I'm pretty sure she knows it all, though she would not ever admit to that. But I would think that was true. Happy to welcome to the program Becky Kuehn. Becky, welcome.
Thank you, Les. Happy to be here.
No, it's a pleasure, and you have so much experience. You've done so much in this space and so much from the industry that it's a real delight to have you. So let's start where we start with every program. Set us off by telling us what you currently are doing, your current role, and what you do, and what you like about it.
Well, I've returned to private practice about 10 years ago. I at a law firm in Washington, D.C., Hudson Cook. And I work with companies of all different types in the consumer reporting space. So employment background screeners, tenant screeners, data providers, vendors, you name it. Anybody who touches consumer data, I'm here to help them.
Oh, that's great. And you also contribute a great deal to the screening industry as a speaker at PBSA quite often, correct?
Yes, so I've been involved with PBSA. I was thinking about this. Probably the first time I encountered them was back when I was at the Federal Trade Commission. And that's quite a number of years. They obviously had a different name back then. They were good old NAPBS. But I enjoy coming to the conferences and talking with people and discussing whatever latest issues are and just catching up.
Oh, that's fantastic. So in your current role, I assume that you represent CRAs and in a number of different type of cases. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, kind of a little bit of a thumbnail sketch of what
Sure.
you're doing these days.
Yeah, so I do a lot of compliance work, which is helping people get their policies and procedures up to snuff, etc. We do some litigation. Mostly my partners handle that. I do expert witness work in cases, so cases being handled by other law firms. Sometimes they need an expert witness to talk about procedures or what the standards in the industries are. But mostly what I really like is working through people's business problems and trying to figure out how to comply with this, Fair Credit Reporting Act and DPPA and all the other statutes we bang up against in the background screening area.
And during the course of our talk, we'll talk a little bit about the alphabet soup of involved in the screening world. But what do you like best about working with background screeners? That's a part of your portfolio at your law firm.
One of the things I really like are the people who are in this industry. I think PBSA and its members are kind of unique in that they tend to work together. They're all fierce competitors, right? Everybody wants to win the business, but they're all trying to deal with the same challenges. And they're generally just the nicest bunch of folks. So It is easier to be a lawyer when you really like your clients as people, and you have a lot of sort of built-in respect there. And so it's just fun helping these folks. And they all have the same goal, which is to keep workplaces safe or to keep housing safe and, to protect the public. And, let's face it, these days nobody's in background screening to make a whole bunch of money. It's a real tough industry right now. So you've got to have a real love for the business. And I love people who love what they do. So we have a lot of fun together.
And just to, in case I skipped over it, the firm what you're with, well known, Hudson Cook, right?
Yes.
And you are not only a partner, but you chair the FCRA Privacy Data Security Committee, correct?
Yeah, so our practice group focuses on consumer reporting of all types, privacy, data security. And, these days there's all these state laws popping up, so we've got folks with all different kinds of backgrounds, and we've worked with all different kinds of consumer reporting agencies. I deal a lot with background screeners and employment screeners, but we've had everything from folks who deal with gambling information to medical information to you name it. So it's kind of fun. No 2 days are the same, which I really like about my job.
Never a dull day.
Never. Never dull.
So what you're doing now, obviously there's a path to get there. Tell us about you have a fascinating career path. So how did you get from, let's say, from law school to where you are now?
Yeah, I've been out for a couple of years. I've been doing toxic tort work, which is really defending companies with chemical exposure, stuff like that. Can be some really draining stuff. And I made a change to a law firm in Virginia, and in '96, as you might remember, they amended the Fair Credit Reporting Act to boost up the private right of action. And there was an enterprising young lawyer out of Newport News named Len Bennett who started bringing cases suing some of the financial institutions that I worked with. So I fell into the FCRA doing defense work way back when. And I did that for a number of years, made partner at the law firm I was with then. When I talked with a guy named Joel Winston at the Federal Trade Commission, and he said he was looking for an assistant director who knew something about this Fair Credit Reporting Act to sort of head up the program there, help finish the rulemakings, look for people to investigate cases to bring, manage a whole bunch of lawyers there. So I ended up leaving private practice and going to work for the government for a while at the Federal Trade Commission.
So the Federal Trade Commission, the famous or infamous, depending on your point of view, I guess, the Federal Trade Commission. So you headed up the part of the commission that dealt with the screening industry, the FCRA aspect of it, among other things, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I was brought in to sort of head up the whole Fair Credit Reporting Act program, which included finishing all these rulemakings that came out of the FACT Act, but also managing the lawyers who were investigating and putting together cases against folks they believed had violated the FCRA.
Okay.
So that included tenant screeners, employment screeners, and others. And then there was a lot of public outreach. One of the things I liked about the Federal Trade Commission, particularly during that time, is they really wanted to get feedback from industry. And Joel Winston, who was also later my partner at the law firm I'm at now, he was heading up the whole division, and he said, how can we make good decisions without actually knowing what's going on, learning the industries that we're trying to bring these cases in. Part of that was going out to conferences, talking with people, having people come and meet with me. I remember having a big meeting with this trade association, the National Association of Professional Background Screeners, who came in, and this big room of folks who came in to talk to us about the challenges they were having with public records. I mean, this was many years ago. Some of these things are same song, repeat themselves, right?
Right.
But talking about the issues they were having and how do we comply with these provisions if we can't get identifiers. So it's kind of fun and sad to think we're still dealing with some of these same challenges.
And the never-ending story. So I assume that you must have first met the PBSA, then NAPBS folks at probably at one of their Washington mid-year conferences when a group would go to the FTC and on a meet and greet and say, here's what we do, and kind of introduce themselves, and here's our issues and whatever.
Yeah, and everybody was, what really impressed me was how forthright people were about, the challenges they were going through, but also really strongly communicating their desire to get it right. And, again, I think that's unique in this industry. Folks are really focused on compliance and wanting to do right things, and they were brave enough, willing enough to come forward and talk about those challenges in pretty specific terms. I was impressed with the group then, so I must have known I was going to be working with these folks in the future.
Well, that's incredible. So, I mean, that's that was always one of the, from the very beginning, one of the the goals of starting the organization was to be able to talk to rule makers and people who regulated the industry and let them know that we're we're the good guys. I mean, we're out there. We're trying to get it accurate. We're trying to get it right. We want to be compliant. We want good things to happen to consumers, right? And so apparently that first group that visited you was able to communicate a sense of that.
Did a really good job.
That's great. So that was the first time you were made aware of NAPBS, now PBSA, with the Federal Trade Commission.
Yeah, back then. So before, I had worked, some of the litigation work I did before I joined the FTC, I did public record vendors, and I helped on that. But with respect to knowing about the trade association and the role that they played, it wasn't until I joined the FTC that I had heard about them and had a chance to interact with them a number of times. And they were always brave enough to invite me to speak, which I love, coming to the conference and speaking. Any excuse to get out of the office was always great.
Now, and then, because for a while the screening industry, paid attention to the, and this was early on, to the staff opinion letters.
Yes.
And that was sort of like the, trying to read the tea leaves, and that was kind of the writing on the wall. And we don't try to, make this program a, legal education program. But since you were in the heart of that, when did the letters become less important? When did that become more historical?
So they stopped doing the letters shortly before I joined the FTC. They decided, they were very narrow, focused on a specific set of circumstances, and they were of varying quality, honestly. I was involved at the FTC when we took all of those opinion letters, synthesized them, weeded through them, and put together what we call the 40-year report.
Right.
Which was a way to kind of pull them into one document. But they also were a little bit dated because you had the FACT Act came out. There were all these rules that came out. And so there was a decision made to just discontinue them.
Yeah.
There's some more background on that, with some opinion letters, mainly in the banking area. They got kind of a back and forth with the banking agencies about it. So everybody decided it was probably good not to continue to do that at the time. I have to say, though, I think I'd much rather have staff opinion letters, which are as good as the staff opinion letter is, but at least it's some guidance, than what we have now, which is an agency issuing circulars, advisory opinions, interpretive rules. Right. Who knows what else there is out there?
I mean, and a lot of people don't remember the old staff opinion letters because they're now ancient history, and they were withdrawn and, like you said, incorporated in the 40-year report. But back in the day, those were kind of the touchstone you always took a look at. Yeah. So we got you in your career path. You were at the FTC, and you were there for a fair bit. And what happened next?
So I got to do a lot of fun stuff at the FTC. I will say I got to travel the world on the FCRA. So I did a World Bank project that took me to some exotic locations on a government dime. That was fun. But I had an opportunity to go in-house at a company and actually sort of work on compliance on the ground. That was CoreLogic, and basically, got to help fix compliance from the inside. And while I was there, the Dodd-Frank Act came out, and one of our subsidiaries fell within examination, so we were getting ready for examination and doing all of that stuff. But that was fun because I, as an industry person, I got to participate with PBSA, as it came to be known, in a very different way, right, as a member. So, and participate on committees and help out and do all that kind of stuff. But, deal with some of the challenges. We had litigation the company had to deal with. We had to deal with, those crazy people at the FTC. What were they thinking? That kind of stuff.
Right. And and I hadn't really thought about the FAT Act for years. Not that most people wake up thinking about that, but that's right. That came out, and that was a whole nother layer of things for people to think about. Right.
And trying to get right. I mean, while I was at the FTC, we were trying to right-size the red flags rule, because when it was first out, it could apply to everybody, like your lawn care company. And you can imagine a little lawnmower guy having to have a red flags program. That's probably not what Congress intended. So we had to help work with Congress in revising the FCRA to fix that, to make sure it only
Right.
applied to the people it really made sense to apply to. But it was fun, I got to deal with state regulators and all that other good stuff. But when I went to CoreLogic shortly after that, one of the first things that happened is my former employer ends up issuing what they call a 6B, which is an investigative subpoena. So you're not under investigation. We don't think you've done anything wrong, but we're trying to learn about the industry. This is when they were first looking into data brokers. And wouldn't you know, one of the companies they pick is the company I'm working for. So I got to complain about how unreasonable they were on the other side. So.
Right. So you get it from every end. It doesn't matter, right?
Exactly.
And then not that long thereafter, the EEOC came out with their 2012 guidance, which was equally earth-shaking. So that was a period of time where things were really in flux. I mean, compared to now at least, where things have kind of somewhat settled down, relatively. Right.
No, I mean, and the EEOC guidance was a big deal, and trying to help people through that, help us through it. We, trying to figure out as screeners, what's our role here? What do we have
Right.
to do? What do our clients need to do? How can we help our clients? Stuff like
Right.
that. Yeah, but that's the great thing about working in this area, particularly as a lawyer. There's always some new challenge that you've got to help your client with.
Right.
Some of these things I think are like the full Lawyer Relief Act, right? We're making sure we always have a job.
Right. Yeah, is it that old proverb, may you live in interesting times, and those were really interesting times.
Yeah.
So then you were with CoreLogic for a while. Then what was the next in your career path? Where'd you go from there?
So I came here 10 years ago. One of my former boss at the FTC had left, and he had joined Hudson Cook, and he was and another partner of mine, Ann Fortney, was looking to retire, and she'd been doing a lot of FCRA work. And so they, both talked to me and said, hey, I know you're working for that company, but how would you like to work for a whole bunch of companies and help them? And it was a different type of law firm than the ones I'd been at before. Lot more ability to balance what I like to do in my personal life with my professional life, and a lot of more control over what I wanted to do and who I wanted to work with, and people here are just awesome. So it was a great opportunity, and I got here and I got to hire a bunch of my friends. So
Oh, that's great.
that's the best. So Jennifer Sarvati and I have worked together since I was back at the law firm before I went to the FTC. Meg Nichols, who's in my Texas office, and I worked back at CoreLogic together. So it's great, and just keep hiring all the people I know. And another CoreLogic person, Jay Harris, joined us about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So we just keep hiring my friends. It's a great gig.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm looking out. I didn't ask you this before, but I'm looking out. On your screen and behind the window. Where are you actually at now? Are your offices in Washington or?
Yeah, so we are right on K Street. So if you hear sirens, it's probably somebody from the White House going somewhere, not far from GW. But we're at 20th and K,
Okay.
downtown. So I figured for you, Les, I was going to come to my fancy office and call you from there.
All right. I mean, you're on K Street. You are in the heart of the beast. You are in the middle of where it's all happening these days.
Yeah, and now everybody's coming back to work, so I get to get all the traffic too.
All right. But at least the restaurants have opened, so
Yes.
that's right.
It's a little better than it was during COVID.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, that's always been to me the great thing about Washington D.C. is that every single cuisine in the world was within walking distance. So it's just a great place for a foodie. So
Oh, it
not
is.
that I'm not a foodie. I just eat anything, so I don't have a lot of discretion about
So
it.
if you like good food, it's still a good place. But I have a lot of affinity for DC. I'm one of the few people you will meet who was actually born in Washington, DC.
Oh,
So a lot of people who come here have been, somewhere else. But my dad and his family grew up in Southeast Washington. And so when my parents were first married, they lived here. And then probably moved to Texas for a while and then back to Southern Maryland. So, but I like to claim my DC birth citizenship as much as I can because
I'm not sure I've ever actually met a DC baby.
Yeah,
Right.
they're very few.
Someone born within, what is it? The 1 square mile or
Yeah. I
of
think
the
it's not too
district.
far off from the size of the Vatican, as I remember. It's like the two of them are close in size, but very different places.
You've done so much. I mean, there's so many things. One of the things I like to ask people is, what is a lesson that you learned early on that and for most people, we all learn lots of lessons. But what's one lesson you learned early on in your career that kind of comes to top of mind that you've applied in your professional career?
Well, work is hard, so work with people you like. I've been at a variety of places, variety of sizes of firms and companies, but I've been very fortunate to work with people who are just awesome folks. And hard work is so much easier when you're doing it with people you like. And then maybe I'll add a second one, I really love what I do. I fell into the Fair Credit Reporting Act in 96, 97, which was a very long time ago now.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and I just loved it. I've never quite been sure why, but I've loved the problem solving. I've loved the craziness of this statute and how mixed up it is because Congress has done so much to it. um, I'm always finding something new, even now, even this many years later, and there are always new challenges. The data changes, the technology changes, so there's always something to learn, and I just enjoy that.
So that's great. So a lot of unpack there. So lesson number one is you work with people you like. And number two, you work in an area that you like, because the FCRA is, you're right, it's Byzantine and challenging, and it's always changing, and no one ever agrees on it. Right?
That's true.
But
I have folks at other law firms who are friends, and this is one of the few areas I can call up somebody and just geek out over something. Hey, have you ever thought about this question? And they're always willing to take my call, or I'm willing to take their call, even though we are competitors otherwise. So similar to the folks in PBSA, we're all just trying to figure out the same crazy statute and work our way forward.
I love the legal term. So you call someone and you geek out. Right?
Well, so I'm always torn. Am I an FCRA nerd or an FCRA geek? I'm not sure. Probably a little bit of both.
Because that's what I think when you have in your LinkedIn description, FCRA nerd.
Yes.
Right. Oh, that's fantastic. All right. So, I mean, Becky, I mean, you could be, with your legal skills and experience and talent, you could, go in any industry you want. Why the screening industry? What do you find fascinating about that?
I think it's the role that they play in sort of keeping people safe, making smarter decisions. It's an interesting time that we live in because there's such a focus on privacy and should we be limiting information. And maybe I'm a little bit of an evangelist about this, but I think good data makes good decisions. And so this is an industry, it's governed by this very heavy, big law that tries to make sure people have good data to make good decisions. And I think that's important. And I think the people that are in this industry are dedicated to that.
Yeah, I mean, and that could be the name of this particular show. Good data leads to good decisions, right? I mean,
Yeah.
good, accurate, solid, usable data is the basis of making good decisions. And one of the things I always point out is that we not only work for screening firms, but it's for the consumer as well. I mean, for they're because the Fair Credit Reporting Act really protects them. They're one of the recipients of the benefits of the act.
Yeah, there's so many protections for consumers in it, and the folks that you and I have worked with over the years want to make sure they get it right, and so they invest a lot in how they work with consumers, being able to address their issues, and oftentimes helping consumers where I don't know the court hasn't been helpful, or helping them figure out how somebody used your name to do X, so how do you get that unwound? How do you get that straightened out? The folks in the background screening industry, I think, are just really willing to try to get it right and help consumers get it right.
No, I agree. I've always had this philosophy, and people probably heard before, but even though consumers don't pay us, employers do, consumers are really our number one client, and we owe it to consumers to do everything we can to make their lives easier and better. And there's a lot of payoffs for that. I mean, for different reasons. So yeah, perfect. Oh, that's great. I think we've implicitly or explicitly covered this, but I do like to ask people, what do you enjoy most about the background screening industry? You mentioned you enjoyed working with the with the people in it. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so, obviously I met some folks back when I was at the FTC. I got more involved when I was at CoreLogic. I actually remember the first conference I got to go to where I wasn't a regulator was down in Nashville, and ended up, with these crazy background screening folks going from bar to bar, having a grand old time. Um, but these are folks that have full, rich lives and interesting people, and I met spouses and friends, and so I enjoyed that. But the background screening industry has some unique challenges, and so the whole public record area, and acquisition of public records, dealing with that, I find that really interesting and challenging. And some of it's a fallout from the stuff we did at the FTC, right? So the FTC was very focused on privacy of Social Security numbers, take them out of public records. The flip side of that is now it's harder to get that information in order to match that stuff. So I feel like part of my work here is helping folks deal with the aftermath of, what I think were the right decisions at the time, but now what do we do next? How can we meet this challenge? And working towards something that makes sense, because nobody wants to give a report that has the wrong information on it. Nobody wants to, attribute the wrong record to a consumer. But we're dealing with very limited information, and so, we've talked to courts. I've participated with Uniform Law Commission, with some of their focus on records and stuff, and talking to folks of different backgrounds, consumer advocates, judges, court systems. It's a really neat area to be able to talk, to meet and interact with all kinds of people.
Well, and I think you really hit the nail on the head. It's so interesting because this is the rubber hits the road, or whatever the metaphor is, in so many ways. There's privacy versus safety. So courts want a mass date of birth. Okay, so that's a privacy concern. But then that ends up hurting consumers who might have a false positive. And how do you get them, make sure they're not incorrectly, have a criminal record incorrectly attributed to them, and how do you protect the workforce, and how do you get people hired faster when you put up these roadblocks? So there's all these unintended consequences sometimes courts and regulators I don't think realize, in terms of bending over to help people that they're not helping sometimes. I don't want to be too critical, but sometimes they're not helping as much as they think.
Yeah, we had this issue, Rhode Island of all places, and they've got restrictions on the ability to ask certain information from tenant screening applicants. And they didn't want people being discriminated against on the basis of age, which I get, right? Young people, older people should be able to apply for the apartments, and if they qualify for them, get them. But the way they had set it out, they weren't letting people ask for dates of birth, which is really hard, right? When most of the public records, if there's anything in there, at least most of them still have a date of birth. So, we got to talk to the regulators and sort of say, hey, we need a little tweak on this, because we understand it. We don't want people discriminating on the basis of age, and we shouldn't be asking that. But can we at least get this for the limited purpose of getting background reports? And we got them to come around on that, which was big deal.
That's good. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that was congratulations. So you've been involved in the ground floor, and you've been in the involved with the FTC and private firms and representing firms. Really quick, we're going to play changes and challenges. We don't spend more than 30 seconds. What's been the biggest changes you've seen in the industry since you've been involved, and what would you pinpoint as the one or two biggest challenges going forward?
One of the biggest changes has been being able to leverage technology to solve some of these problems. So although some folks treat it as a boogeyman, AI, machine learning, other sort of technology stuff has helped find patterns to match records better, to get a better rate of accuracy, to try to assess them with more skill, and I think that's great. The challenges are, you've got all these state privacy laws and state moves, and to your point, Les, it's sometimes these are things that are done by people who haven't really fully appreciated what the impact of what they're proposing is, right? They're focused on one set of facts or one set of perceived harms, and they're not taking a step back and seeing the larger picture. I mean, what happened in California is probably a really big example of that, right? In the name of privacy, you can't use date of birth, which now means everybody's lining up at the court to pull the underlying records, and screening's taking forever, and it's become a real challenge.
Yeah.
I think there's a lack of, sort of foresight there.
Yeah, and people in California can't get the jobs they want or deserve, and employers have a delay, and if you hire someone prematurely, there's a risk, or if you do conditional hires, it's a big,
risk
messy
too,
thing.
Yeah.
Wow. So Becky, looking back at your career, and your career is nowhere near being over. You're still, right? You're still going strong, all right. But what pops to mind as a proud moment or accomplishment that makes you smile?
I had the opportunity, and I will forever be thankful to Joel Winston. I mentioned he was my boss at the Federal Trade Commission, later became my partner here at Hudson Cook. But while I was at the Federal Trade Commission, he had an opportunity to participate in a World Bank project about consumer reporting standards. So basically, what are the international standards for credit reporting? And he passed that to me. And so I got to participate in working with folks from all around the globe in developing, what at then was, a framework for what does it mean to be it was more focused on credit, but it was a credit reporting company. What are the standards we're looking for? What's the sign of a good credit reporting system? We have a pretty amazing one here in the United States, and it's largely voluntary, which is, unheard of. But I got to learn about all these other countries and what they do, and the best part is I also got to travel to Rome, to Basel, to Mexico City, so not so bad. That was actually nice. I got a little bit of travel on the government. I also did a mission to Egypt with USAID because they were looking to build their credit reporting system. So I think that was pretty exciting. Since I've been in private practice, I have testified before Congress once, and that was pretty cool. Although it was during COVID, so it was from my office, but it still felt pretty cool.
It still counts.
Still counts.
Oh, that's amazing. So that could be the FTC's new recruiting model. Join the FTC, see the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it was great. It was a great opportunity, and but it gave you a lot of perspective too. To think, come back here and looking at some of how these other countries do things, the privacy considerations that they had already been working through, and the things that we're now still working through. It's kind of interesting.
Wow, I mean, it's so fascinating. So you get to be on the cutting edge of so much. So one of the things we mentioned and we weaved throughout the interview, we talked about PBSA and in your role in first seeing PBSA at the commission and speaking. But so tell us a little bit more about how your PBSA has influenced your career in terms of not only what you do professionally, but things you've learned or done, or I know you do a lot of speaking. How's that all? Give us a little more information about that. I think it sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, PBSA is, I think, unique in its development and the way it has grown. Built out its whole accreditation program, etc. And what's nice about it is, again, the people that go are dedicated to what they're doing. The volunteerism in this trade association is higher than any other trade association I've ever been engaged with. People are really dedicated. But I think the biggest thing is I met so many friends. People I call friends from there. My favorite story is, you remember, I think the first conference after COVID that I went to was PBSA in Anaheim. Ron Rather is an attorney at Troutman. He was in another firm before. I knew him back from CoreLogic days. But we were both speaking there. And we spoke together on a panel.
I'm sorry, who's that again?
Is Ron Rather.
Okay, great. Okay.
Troutman Sanders. Or I guess it's Troutman Pepper. Troutman Pepper. I don't know. I tease them because they change their name every other month. Ron and I go way back, and he happened to mention he was looking to sell his '66 Mustang, and so we made a handshake deal in Anaheim for me to buy that car. So I actually bought his '66 Mustang, and been getting worked on and playing with it and driving it around ever since.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right. So there you go. A marketing motto for PBSA: join PBSA and buy your dream classic car.
Exactly. It's been a great benefit to me.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really fun. So let's pretend the background screen doesn't exist for a minute or two, and let's talk about you. What are some of the things you do other than drive 66 Mustangs, presumably no more than the speed limit. Right.
I will neither confirm nor deny that.
All right. But what are some of the hobbies or outside interests and fun things you do when you're not a self-described FCRA nerd?
Well, speaking of nerd and geek, I do like Star Trek. I just came back from a Star Trek cruise.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding?
I'm totally serious. For a week on a boat with a bunch of people just like me who are really into it and had a blast. So, that's probably the first time I've ever done that. We watch all this, my husband and I watch all the shows. We watched them all of our, we've been married for a long time. But something we love to do together. I got to go on this cruise. It was a blast. Love reading. Love.
Oh, wait! Before we move on from the Star Trek cruise, because this is too good. So, were people in character? Were they wearing costumes?
There were theme nights, yes, and there were people like the full makeup artists who work for the shows are actually there. You can do the full alien makeup and wear it all week. I did not do that.
You can become a Romulan, you become a Vulcan, you can become whatever.
A Ferengi, anything, yeah.
A Ferengi.
But they have a lot of folks from the shows come and do shows while they're there, so you're meeting them in the elevator. So I ran into Jonathan Frakes in the elevator. Another guy named Wilson Cruz is from one of the more recent shows, bumped into me in the hallway. It was just kind of fun, but it was such an escape from everything I do every day. So you really couldn't think about work because it's 24/7 around all these different people. We had a blast. We met some new friends and had a great time.
If I don't ask you this question, I'll get cards and letters or maybe one email. But were you in character, and who's your character?
We only dressed up one night. I went with two girlfriends who I've known since I was 10 years old. And that was as a Lower Decks character. So Lower Decks is the new cartoon that came out.
Right, yeah.
So yes, so we did Lower Decks, and then two of us did Lower Decks, and one of the other one did original series.
All right. So did you have a Lower Deck costume and a phaser and a communicator and?
Since I did it sort of quickly before I left. I have the shirt and I got some black pants, and there you go. That was the quickest
close enough
I could come up with. But it was fun just watching all these people and all ages. That's what was so amazing. It's just so many different people, so many different backgrounds, all with a shared love of this crazy universe of Star Trek. So
where did the cruise go? Where did it start and go?
So we came out of Miami, which is a terrible port. I am going to tell you that. Totally disorganized, too much traffic. But we went to Costa Maya, Cozumel, and then Belize.
Okay.
But the real focus was what was going on in the show.
Yeah, so you did the Western Caribbean at the same time. They so what did they do? This program may run over, but I'm fascinated. What did they do during the evening entertainment? Was it Star Trek centric, or what did they?
Yeah, so they did. Well, they were celebrating the 30th anniversary of Voyager, Star Trek Voyager. So they had a lot of the cast there, and they did a couple of panels, sort of discussing things about the show. One night, John Delancey, the guy who plays Q in a number of the Star Trek shows, put on a replay of the War of the Worlds. Had different folks from the Star Trek universe do different roles in that. They played silly games like Family Feud kind of game. It was pretty funny. Every night it was something different. What was really interesting is how many people are musicians. And so there's a couple of characters who do a Rat Pack kind of thing. A couple of the actors have gotten together and they sing songs and do kind of entertainment, tell jokes and things like that. One person taught ballet. Linda Park taught ballet one day. So it's just like random stuff. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and everybody comes with the right, sort of attitude. They're very respectful of the actors and respectful of each other, and just with a big sense of fun.
So you got to go on a voyage with Q. Yeah, boom.
Exactly. Yeah.
He'd snap his finger and change the world. All right.
Like I said, I got to ride in the elevator with Riker, so it's even better.
Oh my God, Lieutenant Riker, or Captain Riker, or Admiral, whatever.
Whatever he's becoming last one. Yes.
Yeah, where we ended up. All right. Well, you realize that at every PBSA conference now on there, you're going to get Star Trek questions now.
I think so. Lovely. Happy to help them. And I had so much fun. I'll tell you, I've already signed up for next year.
Oh my God. Okay.
So much fun. We had such a great time.
Oh, so there we go. That's all right. Becky Kuehn, beam me up. All right.
Beam me up, man.
So I don't know how you can top Star Trek, but I think I may have cut you off. Outside of that, anything else that you want to share with us about things you do for fun outside of work?
Yeah, besides my classic car and trying to work on that, I just do reading and playing with my dogs. We have a golden retriever and a beagle, and they're so much fun. My son is 27, and he and his wife just live down the street, so we see them quite a bit. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's mostly spending time with family and hanging out and watching Star Trek from time to time.
Watching Star Trek from time to time. Is there any new Star Trek coming out? I haven't kept track. Are there any new movies in the making, or any new series coming out?
No new movies. I got a new season of Strange New Worlds coming out soon. They haven't announced the date, but it's already been recorded. So sometime, hopefully April.
So which one is that coming out in April?
It's called Strange New Worlds, and It's the latest one. It has a number of the Star Trek characters like Spock and others, but it's with Captain Pike, and it's
yes, that's right. They brought Captain Pike in. That's a great series, right? Yeah,
that's a great series because it's really true to the classic. So each episode is contained, right? It's a whole. Yeah. It's very episodic storytelling, and but with a whole lot better special effects now.
Yeah, and then they had one episode with a young Lieutenant Uhura, and you have to kind of keep your mind so you don't. Cause we know what happened to Captain Pike from the very first 2 episodes of the original Star Trek. So you have to kind of,
Well, yeah, it is still fun though, and it's such great stories, and I think it's such a universal thing. It's very optimistic, and these days I need a lot of optimism, so it's a good thing to watch.
Okay, well, there you go, folks. Becky Kuehn, right? FCRA expert and Star Trek aficionado. Yeah, who would have known? That's right. And at this point, we play fun facts, and we may have already revealed it, but you want to share something about yourself that people may not know, that unrelated to the screen, that may catch them by surprise?
Sure. I tap dance.
Wow, wait a minute. All right. This interview is blowing me away. So you tap dance on your way to your classic car to catch the boat for the Star Trek cruise.
There you go.
There you go. All right.
I'm a Renaissance person. What can I tell you?
You are. You are a do-it-all. So, I mean, tell us just a little bit about that. How long have you been a tap dancer?
So I started when I was in elementary school, one of those things where your mom puts you in some sort of class. And I started tap dancing then, and, it'd been a number of years since I had done it. But then I got back into it as an adult, and my son one Christmas bought me essentially a tap dancing floor for the house. Because you can't tap dance on your wood floor. Not good.
That you shouldn't do.
Yeah. And you don't want to tap dance on concrete because that's not good for my knees. So, but yeah, he bought me this floor that sits on top of our carpet, and you can just a little 9x9 floor, tap dance there, and it's just fun. I'm not nearly as good as I used to be, but I can still, out tap some people, so it's worthwhile.
Well, I mean, if you haven't tapped, I mean, I took one tap dancing class once for God knows why or when.
No, that I had to see.
It's not. It's hard. Right?
It is hard. It's a lot of ankle stuff, but my one story about tap dancing, since I had done so much, it really makes your bones strong. And I was actually run over. My leg was run over by a car. Literally, the tire went over my my calf, and my leg did not break.
Wow,
So,
because of tap dancing.
Because of tap dancing, my bones are so strong. I had a terrible bruise. I was on crutches for my first high school dance, which was sad, but I didn't break my leg. So I'm telling you, I'm a big fan of tap dancing.
The only other tap dancing lawyer I know is Richard Gere playing the character in Chicago. Right?
I love that tap dance. It's one of my favorite numbers in Chicago. It's like what a great mix of courtroom and tap dance. So much fun.
Oh well, Becky, this has been great. We've actually I enjoyed this immensely. We've gone a little longer than we normally do, but it's been a lot of fun and for good reason. Final questions I like to ask. In this industry, you've seen it all, you've heard it all, you've done it all. Even though, as you say, every day is a new day. Every day, you never get to the point where like, okay, I'm done. I know it all. Because the minute you do that, something explodes. It's like, oh my God, now what? Yeah. All right. But what's your advice for newcomers? And by that I mean somebody who is either thinking of joining the industry or been in it for a little while or deciding whether to stay in. What would you tell them to do in terms of how to maximize their time here or make the best of it?
Really just listen to people, find out what they do, what challenges they've had. I mean, you can save yourself a lot of time and learn from what other people have been through and what challenges they faced. You were asking me earlier about PBSA. One of the greatest things is people are so willing to share their challenges and to talk to each other about it. If I were, coming into this new, that would be the first thing. I would just be a sponge and listen to folks and ask good questions and learn as much as you can.
Yeah, I'm glad PBSA, has had that role. I remember when we were first involved in starting it, we were actually wondering whether anyone would join, whether we could, well, if 5 firms joined, would that be enough? And
right, it was a little start, but it grew quickly. I mean, you guys did a great job in bringing people in and growing it.
Yeah, it's really taken off, and in no small part, people like you that have jumped in and lent your expertise and your speaking or participation. So that's great. So this has been a great interview. I've learned all sorts of stuff. Here I thought I knew you from our connections over the years, PBSA or whatever, and there's just whole new elements and dimensions I had no idea. Right? This is like great. I think people will be coming up to you at conferences and asking you about some of these things. So before we conclude, as one of the TV programs says, it's time to give you the last word. Anything else you want to add or say, or the floor is yours?
Well, Les, I just want to thank you for inviting me to be on here. I've been enjoying watching your other episodes. I recommend those to folks who are watching this one. It's a great industry with great people like yourself, and I really thank you for having me.
Well, and I thank you for being part of the industry, and I thank you for sharing all the legal observations and wisdom, and as well as sharing some great fun stories about other things you do. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another fun, action-packed, exciting episode of Behind the Screens, Conversations with the Background Screening Pros. Our pro today that I was delighted to talk to was Becky Kuehn, a partner at the law firm of Hudson & Cook, industry attorney, former FTC attorney, been there, done it all, and appreciate your time here. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that was yet another wonderful conversation with a background screening pro. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an update. And hey, if you got a moment, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It really helps get the word out. For more info or to catch up on past episodes, or to make suggestions or to suggest possible future guests, head over to our website. Once again, this is your host, Les Rosen, and it's been a pleasure to bring you another episode. See you on the next episode. Thanks.